You know, every time the preacher begins to talk about giving, we say, oh, he's talking about money again. Seems like every time he's talking about money, that preacher's always talking about money. You know, he may have not have talked about money for months, but we think, didn't he talk about money every Sunday? Wasn't it just last week? And so every time we hear about giving, we think, well, the preacher, he's just wanting us to give more money. He may have not have preached about money for months, but we think, wow, he's preaching about money again? Why? Because, well, we hold money so dearly and so tight. And so it strikes a chord when we hear about giving and money. You know, giving is a huge part of our discipleship. In fact, the Scripture says that giving of money, giving to His church, I can't really be a disciple without doing that. I remember when I first started tithing as a young man, and tithing's been a part of our family. This is my tithe, our family's tithe. And we've been doing that. We've been doing that before we were a family. And in the early days, you know, my first job, that's when, the minimum wage was like $3 something. And it's like, wow, I didn't have much to give, but I gave. And then there were the days of UPS when we had lots of money coming in, and so we gave lots of money. We gave our 10%. I remember when we were in school, in seminary, I remember one Sunday we put in 50 cents as our tithe because that was 10% of what we had taken that week. But you know, when we talk about giving, it's not about the money. It's about the giving. So we get that mixed up. We think it's about the money, but it's never about the money. It's about the giving. I know when we were in school, when we really didn't have anything to give money-wise, we developed a lifestyle of giving. Every time a moving truck would come into the community, and we lived in a community of seminary students, every time a moving truck would come in, you just drop what you were doing, and everybody would go out and they would give of their time. And this would happen sometimes 2-3 times a month, so I got pretty good at unloading moving trucks. And we also had something called a share shop. And so you would take stuff that you were no longer using, and you would give it to somebody else. And you could take stuff. And we gave of our time, we gave of our gas, because we would drive around to all the local grocery stores and pick up their day-old bread, and we would take it back to the share shop, and so that everybody could get some of it. And so it was never about the money, because, man, we really didn't have any. It was about the giving, a lifestyle of giving. And since I've been in the ministry, I've had all kind of questions about giving. You know, is it tithing in the New Testament? Did Jesus talk about that? Yeah, he did. Well, how about should I tithe on my net or my gross? Yeah, you should. Just figure that one out. You know, and then, you know, we talk about, well, should we tithe to all these other groups that are outside the church? No, the Scripture's real clear. The tithe belongs to the church. But you see, all those questions can really be answered in crazy giving. A lifestyle of just giving. And Jesus was the craziest giver. He gave and he gave and he gave, and he set out for us a lifestyle of giving. That's what Jesus was. He was a crazy giver. And he wants us to be like him, crazy givers. And you guys, the church, Open Arms Fellowship, man, you guys have been giving and giving and giving these past few weeks. You've been giving down at the bottom and pulling off a block party for that community. You've been giving on the roof and putting shingles on somebody's roof. Man, you've been giving, wow, we've been on our knees putting floors together. You've been giving there. You've been giving and landscaping a place. You guys have been crazy giving. And I'm telling you, you've been giving up your Fridays, you've been giving up your Saturdays. I knew you had other stuff to do. We all do. You've been giving up your time when you could have been hanging out with your family. That's just crazy giving. Y'all been crazy givers. I want to read to you something. I got a letter this week. It was really cool because I got it. I was riding down through the bottom. I think we can say that okay now. I was riding down through there, and Mr. Glover, the man we put the roof on the house, he comes running out towards the road. He knows my little red car because nobody else has got one like that with the hanging light. Y'all know I got a waving light, don't you? It waves at you. So he comes running out on the side of the road, and Mr. Glover, he's 75 years old. But he's running, he's waving, and he wanted to give me a letter. He wanted me to read it to you. He said, "Dear Open Arms Fellowship," he said, "it is with love of the Lord that I greet you and your church family today. I'm writing to express my thanks and gratitude for what you've done for me. The new roof on my house wouldn't have happened in the time frame it did if it wasn't for your generosity and precious time donated to the cause. The new roof certainly complements the house. I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for making this happen for me, and I pray that God will continue to bless you, the Open Arms Ministry, your entire congregation as you continue to give yourself to help those in need." I really love this last line. "I also pray that through the outreach ministry, lost souls will come to Christ." Yeah, crazy giving. Man. Mr. Glover, he's a neat guy. 75 years old, and he's hanging out on the roof with us. I'm like, dude, I was scared already. He was up there with us. Crazy giving. See, Jesus led that lifestyle of crazy giving. He showed us how to be crazy givers because, man, his whole life was spent giving. He's called us to do the same thing. You know, crazy giving, I'm seeing it all over the place. I look back there and I see shoe boxes. Shoe boxes, man. Yeah, you better hurry. We're running out of time for shoe boxes. That's crazy giving. We're going to pack up some shoe boxes and send them to some kids we'll never see, except maybe in heaven. Because each one of your shoe boxes get a track in their language. That's crazy giving, man. Just give a shoebox. There's all kind of ways. You want to see crazy giving? Come by here Monday through Thursday in the afternoon. Talk to Diane. She'll give you a tour. You want to see crazy giving? Come to the after-school program. Man, that's some crazy giving right there. It gets real crazy sometimes, don't it? That's crazy giving. You know what? In a few weeks, it's going to be crazy giving time. It's almost feed the hungry time. Can you think about this? A church of about 200 people, we're gonna cook, we're gonna prepare, and we're gonna serve over 2,000 people. Man, that's crazy. Crazy giving. Wow. Crazy giving. Crazy giving is what our world needs now. We're in a time, we're in a place where we need crazy giving. And that may be money. It may not be money at all. It may be time. It may be our talents. It may be our love, our forgiveness, our patience, our kindness. All of that requires crazy giving. You know, you've heard the news. You know Allendale County, 10th poorest county in the nation. You've heard the news about our county. We lead the state in AIDS and HIV. We know the economic situation here. So many people are dependent on a government for help, and a government that's ever changing. So many people can't find a job. We need a people. We need a place. We need somebody who's shining out as crazy givers. Because Jesus did. You know, Jesus went around as a crazy giver all the time. You know, the scriptures never tell us that he gave any money. I don't know that he ever had any to give. But he was a crazy giver. Every time we see into the life of Jesus, he's giving. He's giving of his time. He's healing. He's praying for somebody. He's discipling. He's making disciples. He's fellowshipping with people. He's all the time giving. And you know, his crazy giving got him in trouble with those people who weren't givers. They were keepers. And they didn't quite understand this guy who went around giving. You know, in his crazy giving, got him nailed on a cross. Yeah, he went that far. Crazy enough to give his life on a cross for you and me. That's crazy giving. You know, in his crazy giving, it got him life after death. Yeah, he came back to life, and you know what? He got told, you're going to be King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Why? Because he was a crazy giver. He just gave and he gave and he gave. You know, the Bible, this book is filled with crazy givers. And some of them, man alive, it's hard to imagine what they did in their life and how they did it. Maybe you've heard of the unknown widow. She was a crazy giver. As we talk about her story, I want to ask you this question this morning. This is a tough one now. Am I a crazy giver like Jesus? Whoa. Can we compare to somebody else? Because, I mean, you know, Jesus is too hard. No, am I a crazy giver like Jesus? Because he was all out crazy about the giving. So there's this story about this unknown widow. We don't know her name. And once the story is over with, we really don't know what happened to her. But back in the day of King Ahab. Now, King Ahab was this king of Israel, and he and his wife were bad news. If you've ever heard of Jezebel, that's his wife. They're bad news. And so back in their day, they had introduced to Israel the idol Baal. And they were proclaiming Baal as their God. Well, that wasn't sitting too well with God, because the God of Israel was the Lord. And so, to get their attention, the Lord called out to one of his prophets, Elijah, and he says, Elijah, he said, I want to tell you, I want the people's hearts back. I want them to come to me. I'm their God, not this false idol over here. And so he says to Elijah, he said, Elijah, I want you to go to the king, and I want you to go to all the people, and I want you to tell them, it ain't going to rain. There ain't going to be no dew falling, and it ain't going to rain for years. Now, for an agricultural society, that's bad news. I mean, when you live off the land, that's really bad news. And so the drought was on. Well, God's a crazy giver too. And so he tells Elijah, look, Elijah, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of you. In fact, this is what I want you to do, Elijah. I want you to go down by this river. I want you to hang out by this river. And that's where you can get some water to drink. And the birds are going to bring you food. Yeah. Well, that's crazy. Birds bring me food? Yeah, God said the birds are going to bring you bread and meat. That's crazy. But Elijah did it. Guess what? It happened. You can read about it. 1 Kings chapter 17. God fed him through the birds. Well, sometime after that, the river dried up. Remember, no rain, no dew. It's getting bad. The river dried up. And so God said to his servant Elijah, he said, hey, Elijah, he said, I want you to go into this town, a town called Zarephath. And he said, there's a widow who's going to take care of you. Let that sink in a minute. A widow. And I know you probably don't know about Zarephath, but Zarephath was the center of the worship of Baal. Now, this is crazier than it sounds. I mean, come on, God, this is really crazy. You want me, the prophet of God, to go to the center of Baal worship where I'm certainly not welcomed? And you want the poorest of society to take care of me? A widow? You see, the widow were the poorest of the poor. And now we have a poor widow in the middle of a severe drought. She's like super poor. God, what's up with this? And God's a crazy giver, man. And so, well, Elijah, he heads on to Zarephath. And we pick up a little bit of the story. It's in your handout there, 1 Kings 17, verse 10, the second part of verse 10. As he came into the town's entrance, a widow was gathering wood. And he called to her, "Please bring me a drink of water." Just give me a drink of water. I just want a drink of water. Because you know what we're in the middle of, don't you? It's a drought. This is like a precious commodity. And so this stranger, he walks into town and he meets another stranger, a widow. She's gathering sticks. Just give me some water. Can I have some water? Y'all want some water? Sorry, I didn't bring enough to share. I mean, y'all can share, but I don't think I got a cold or anything. But Todd, or you'll pass. You'll pass. I just want some water. That's what he came asking. Dude, don't you realize we're in the middle of this severe drought? You're asking me for one of the most precious commodities in my town, and I'm a poor widow. You want water from me? Now before we jump into this lady's response, I want you to understand that God is always at work in our lives to get us ready for tomorrow. He's using today for tomorrow's lesson, or today's lessons for tomorrow's encounters. He's teaching us today what we're going to need down the road. And so this widow, she encounters this guy, and so she's got some tough choices to make. And so let's take a look at what the widow decides to do. Verse 11. As she was going to get it, wow, she heads out to get him a glass of water. As she was going to get it, he called to her again, "Please bring me a piece of bread too." Dude, we're about out of water. I'm a widow. And you want bread now? What's up with you? It reminds me of a lot of people who call the church and call my house. Strangers who are wanting something. Wanting money, wanting some food, wanting this, wanting that. They're strangers to me, but you know, they could be prophets from God. They could be angels from God. They could be God's lesson for me and for us as a church to get ready for what's next. Wow. So man, Elijah's like, okay, grab me a bite to eat. This widow gave him a difficult answer. Remember, she's gathering sticks, and she said, you know, the Lord's my witness. I hadn't made any bread today. You see, in their culture, the lady of the house would get up early in the morning, and she would make bread for the entire day. It would be a done deal, but she says, "Lord's my witness, I ain't made no bread today." She said, "In fact, I'm gathering these sticks to go home, and I got a little bit of flour left. I got a little bit of oil left. I'm gonna go home and make me and my son our last meal, and we're gonna die because we don't have anything else." That's how bad things were. I mean, the drought's been going on. The rivers have dried up. She's got just a little bit for one more meal for her and her son. Now this lady, this widow, she's presented with something somebody's called a crisis of belief. You know, a crisis of belief is when we're forced to act on whether we believe something or not. Or we can say, oh yeah, I believe. And you know, we can call out the name of Jesus like we was doing it in that song, and it was so cool. But it's when we're forced to act on our belief that we have a crisis of belief. Are we going to act on it? Are we going to believe or not? Because you see, Elijah shared a promise with this woman when he asked her to go back and make him a piece of bread. He said, if you do that, you're never going to run out of flour. There's always going to be enough flour. There's always going to be enough oil. So now this widow is forced into a position of believing. I mean, really believing. Now think about this. Put us in that place. Get on her shoes. You're down to your last dollar. Or it may not be money. It may be that, man, your cupboards are bare. I mean, you got like the last can of beans. Or you're just tired. Man alive, you had a week. You're tired. It's Friday. You finally get home to your chair, and you got the remote, and you just want to veg. And somebody comes knocking. They want something. They say they need something. You're spent. You're out. You're at the bottom. What you gonna do? Crisis of belief. Is this person who's calling on me, is this God who's in control of this situation, and he's wanting to use this situation to get me ready for something else? Is he wanting me to give when I am just give out? Or do we just keep? Say, no, man, you don't understand. You don't understand, Elijah. I just got enough for me and my son. And it's our last meal. That's tough. This widow had to make a call. She had to make a decision that you and I have to make every day. Are we going to be crazy givers, or are we going to be crazy keepers? Well, let's see what the lady did. Verse 15. She did what Elijah told her. And that's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy, ain't it? Crazy giving. That's just crazy giving right there. So, the rest of the verse, so she, Elijah, and her family had food for a long time. Verse 16, the jar of flour, man, it never became empty. And the oil, it never ran out. Wow. You see, God used this widow's crazy giving to get her ready to receive some crazy giving. I mean, this challenge that was brought to her from a stranger who walked into town and says, just give me a drink of water. Just give me a piece of bread. That opened the door for her to receive some crazy giving from God, a miraculous gift that her flour never ran out and her oil never ran out. Wow. You see, crazy giving got her ready for what God was going to do next. See, God knows. He knows about your tomorrow. He knows what's going to happen. You don't? I don't. We don't have a clue. He does. And He's using today to get us ready for tomorrow. God knew that this drought was going to go on for a while. And God knew that this lady was going to need some more flour and she was going to need some more oil. God knew all that. She was ready to eat the last one and die. And God said, you know what? If you'll be a crazy giver, I'm going to get you ready. I'm going to get you ready for tomorrow. Because she had to have faith. You see, that's the thing about crazy givers. You grow in faith. See, the more we give, because we don't think we have it to give, the more we get crazy about giving, the more our faith grows. Remember, God didn't ask her, supply Elijah for food for the rest of his life. I don't know what she'd have said. She probably said, no way, can't do it. The first request was just a piece of bread, a little drink of water. She moved on faith and gave a crazy gift. And it got her ready for what was going to happen next. This widow, her family, Elijah, because of her crazy giving, they were living while others around them were starving to death. What's God calling you to be a crazy giver with? It may not be money at all. Maybe forgiveness. Ooh. Maybe pride. It may be love after somebody's hurt you over and over and over again. That's crazy giving right there. It may be time when you said, my schedule is so busy I can't do anything else. God's saying, got somebody that needs a little bit of your time. Crazy giving. Remember, God's using today to prepare us for tomorrow because this story doesn't end right here. Something else happens in this lady's life. Look at verse 18. And this is sometime later on. Verse 18. What do you and I have in common, man of God? Did you come here to remind me of my sin and kill my son? You see, sometime later on, this widow lady's son got sick and he died. Now, for a widow in her culture, this was the ultimate end. There was no more hope. There was no more future. Her only hope lied in that son who would grow up and be able to make a living and care for her. There were no government programs like they shouldn't be now. Because if all of us were crazy givers, if the Church of Jesus Christ was crazy givers, then we could take care of everybody else's needs. You know, the book of Acts talks about the church who are crazy givers, and you know what? Thousands of people flocked to him. Jesus was a crazy giver. You know what? Thousands of people flocked to him. You know, I'm convinced that if we became crazy givers, people would just flock to us. And then that would get us ready for what's next, and that's making disciples who make disciples, and then we win. Crazy giving. And so this lady, her son has gotten sick. He's died. She now has absolutely no hope for her future. She comes to Elijah, and look what she's come to realize in her life. She's come to realize a problem that's greater than a drought. A problem that's greater than worrying about whether she has flour or oil. A problem greater than her son's own health. You see what she says there? She says, you remind me of my sin. This widow came to realize she had a sin problem. You know, in all the craziness of our life and all the needs of food and of time and of money and all the things that we struggle with and we wrestle with and all the things that bring us down and all that stress, we often fail to realize our greatest problem is a sin problem. And you know what? We all have that problem. Every one of us. And that's where the crazy giving of Jesus comes in. You know, I was sharing with the praise team earlier. How about this? A totally perfect, innocent man would die for people he's never seen. He would die for people that the book says we're his enemies. That's crazy giving right there, boy. Jesus, the crazy giver. But he did that. He gave his life for you and for me and for all those people out there who are wrestling with all kind of problems and have yet to come to the realization that their biggest problem is sin. But you know what? We got the crazy giver who has a way to handle our sin problem. So this lady, this widow, she came to realize that she had a sin problem. You see, track with me now. We find out from the beginning that all she was asked was for a little bit of water, a piece of bread. She was a crazy giver. She gave it. And then that led to God doing some crazy stuff in her life and a miracle that her bread and her oil and her flour never gave out. But now her son's dead. See, here again, God knew. God knew she's going to need water. God knew she's going to need flour and oil. And God knew that this major crisis was coming in her life. And that she would need to know who to turn to. She goes to the man of God. Said, here's my son. He's died. I realize I'm a sinner. My son has died. See, God was getting her ready for the tomorrow. He was building her faith. Oh, it started with just a piece of bread and some water. And then she came to realize, man, this God, man, he provides me with plenty of food. Now my son's dead. God, what now? This crazy giver had grown in a crazy faith, and she came to God with her son. Look what happens in verse 22. Elijah has taken her son. He's a little son, small enough that they can carry, and he's taken him up to his bed, and Elijah's laid him on the bed, and he's prayed over the son. And look at verse 22. The Lord heard Elijah's request, and the child's life returned to him. He was alive again. Does that excite you? Y'all wait. My God can bring people back from the dead, if I believe it. Do you? Thank you. But we can't get to that kind of faith until we have the kind of faith that says, you know, I'll give a piece of bread, even if I don't have it. I'll give a drink of water when it's the most precious commodity I have. Wow. And God's getting us ready for the tomorrow. So, you a crazy giver like Jesus? Look in your life. Who's number one? Really, this is a tough thing. Who's number one? You know, God asked to be number one. He wants to be number one. And if we're going to grow, if we're going to be prepared for tomorrow, He's got to be number one. And we got to become crazy givers. And it may have nothing to do with money. You know what? Money was never brought up in this story, was it? It's not even in there. God does call us to give money, but He calls us to have a lifestyle of giving. To be crazy givers with everything, every day. Think about this. What if, now God's got to be first. God first. But what if we were crazy givers at home? Man, I believe the divorce rate would just drop out. What if we were crazy givers with forgiveness to our spouse? And we were crazy givers of love to our spouse? And we were crazy givers of giving up that anger and giving up that pride that we weren't treated the way we wanted to. And we just started giving up all the bad stuff, and when we started giving up all the good stuff, and we just became crazy givers in our marriages. Wow. I think things would change. And parents, what if we became crazy givers into the life of our kids? Man, it's tough out here for kids. They ain't got nobody giving them any good stuff. Parents, what if we were crazy givers and we poured into the life of our kids? We turned off the sports and the movies that we spent so much time in front of that crazy machine, and we put away the hobbies for a little bit, and we crazily gave into the life of our children. Wow. And we probably wouldn't have teens wrestling with drugs and alcohol and cutting themselves, because we was crazy givers. We gave of our time and our love and our energy. We just gave. How about at work? How about at school? How about if we became crazy givers to those people? You know, the coworker, we just began to do stuff for them even when they didn't ask. And when they were struggling, we just jumped in and we helped out. We were just crazy givers. And at school, we did stuff for other students and for teachers. Oh, man, do stuff for teachers, right, Diane? Do stuff for your teachers. Crazy givers. What might happen? Well, you know, some would take advantage of us. Well, absolutely. They did Jesus. But some would say, why? Why are you doing that for me? And that's when we can say, well, let me tell you about my crazy giving God who has eternal life for you. It opens the door. It begins with mopping a floor. It begins with spending time. It begins with a thank you to your teacher, students. It begins with something little like a piece of bread and a drink of water. And then it can just open the door to them understanding an incredible love from a crazy giving God. And then what if, wow, this one's hard. What if we were crazy givers like this widow to strangers like Elijah? I mean, just somebody you met during the day, at the grocery store. Well, what would your life be like if you went out as a crazy giver to whomever God put in your path? That would be interesting. I remember I did this a lot, and I enjoyed doing it when I lived in the upstate, and I took the toll road a lot. I would love to pay the toll for the person behind me. And I'd try to look in the rearview mirror to see their expression, you know, because I couldn't talk to them. I wasn't ever going to see them. I just wanted to see how they looked, you know, like, huh, I don't know those people. You know, I would go through my mind. What did they say to the toll operator? I don't know who they were. Why did they pay mine? You know, the toll operator, they don't know. Just do crazy giving. Our God's a crazy giver. You know what? No matter what you've done, no matter what you've done, no matter how bad you've treated him and treated others, no matter how much you turn your back on God, you know what? He wants to give you eternal life in heaven with him. That's how much of a crazy giver he is. He just wants you to come on and be with him forever in heaven. That's what Jesus did for us. He just went to the cross. He was crazy enough to give his life for every one of us. But you know what? To get that, you got to be a crazy giver. You got to give your life over to Christ. You got to take that step of faith. And say, yes, God, I give you my life. Yes, God, I trust you. And then, oh man, then you're going to get to experience how crazy a giver God is. Because he's going to give. Believer, crazy giving. What is it that we need to work on in crazy giving? You know, Jesus is our model. That's the question. Am I a crazy giver like, not like him, not like her, not like them, like Jesus? The other morning about 6:15, yeah, there is a 6:15 a.m. for some of you, if you might not know that. I was up praying, and I was praying for 10,000 people in Hampton County to come to know Christ. Now, y'all think I'm crazy, but I'm looking, y'all know I'm out to win. And I was praying, I was like, God, how do we reach 10,000 people in this county? You know, and he took me back to Jesus' life. Jesus didn't have a big fancy building to say, y'all come. Jesus didn't have an over-the-top praise team who did awesome praise music. Jesus didn't even have no money. But he gave. He gave of himself. He gave every moment that he had the opportunity, and they came, and they came, and they came. If we just become crazy givers, they're going to come. So, believer, where do you need to be a crazy giver in your life? You wrestle with that. What is it? This altar is open. It's the altar of sacrifice, of giving. What do you need to give to God today? Stand with me. As music plays, where do you need to be a crazy giver? Because all of us have got something. All of us have got something. We got to be a little crazy in giving. I'm down here. The elders are down here to pray with you.